Press the bell icon on YouTube and don't miss another update.
It is not every other day that a serving army chief speaks to a journalist at great length, almost like for an unlimited duration of time for more than 2 hours. It's a lot. And then address issues over a very wide range. And these are tactical, strategic, of human resources, of firepower, everything. So, this is an interview that General Bipin Rawat, Chief of Army Staff, gave to Snehesh Alex Philip, our defense editor. I just happened to be present vicariously to listen and to understand what's going on. But it was an interview to Snehesh Alex Philip, in which the Army Chief addressed many issues. You can see that full interview on ThePrint.in today. I am taking 7 points out of it. And these are 7 points that indicate reform, much needed, much delayed, and very important reform in the Indian Army specifically. Some in the armed forces in general, but essentially in the Indian Army. The 7 points, I have ranked them in terms of the hierarchy that I put there, but anybody can put their own hierarchy. They are equally important. And I am trying to make sense of each one of these, to cut some jargon and to declutter it for you in terms of what it might do, what changes it might bring to the Indian Army, to its doctrine, to its firepower, to its fighting ability, and to us by way of being honest, tax-paying citizens who trust our armed forces. So, the first of these, first of these set of reforms is, I would say, formation level. So, the big reform at formation level, and we've heard something about this, is the formation of integrated battle groups. So, what happens is, in the traditional structure of the Indian Army that we inherited from the British, the division is this basic structure, and division has a bunch of brigades. It can have 2 or 3. Then a division has an artillery component, an armor component, then signals, then all the other support arms. It becomes a bit cumbersome. On the other hand, now the experiment will be done with integrated battle groups, IBGs. So each integrated battle group will have a bunch of brigades. Also, it will have its own integrated armor, artillery and support arms. And each integrated brigade group with a specific role and task will train for it, will be ready for it at a very short notice, will still be headed by a major general. The important thing that the chief told us is that the initial thought that the brigadier rank may be abolished has now been given up. The brigadier rank will remain, because the idea is not to disrupt, the idea is to reform. Also, to make sure that this doesn't go out of control, or just to be careful, because when you shake an old tree, you have to be very careful, and the army is as tradition bound and old as any other institution. So maybe it's good to start at some places and see how it works. So the 2 areas where IBGs are now being created are the core based at Yolkant in Dharamshala in Himachal Pradesh, that is the 9th Corps, and 33rd Corps based in Siliguri. That corps looks at Sikkim, essentially, Sikkim and then China. So these corps are now converting into integrated battle groups. YOL, the chief spoke to us about in some detail, because its area of interest also happens to be the portion of international border between India and Pakistan. Remember, when we talked about the entire border, we had explained to you the distinction between the area that is called line of control and the area that is called international border. So international border, which abuts Punjab on one side and Jammu on the other, and he specifically talked about Shakargarh Bulge, and he said that's where India and Pakistan have fought bitter battles in 65 and 71. Pakistan has been seen to carry out some build-up there, move more armor there, stock more ammunition. So these battle groups will be useful or will be customized for that area. So that is the big change. And if this works, then you will have more and more of these battle groups, independent because each has its own armor, artillery and support arms. under one commander. These will come up. Second, let me say, doctrinal reforms. So what are these doctrinal reforms? So the chief made a very important point. He said that the Indian Army has now acquired an LOC mindset. What is an LOC mindset? Because given the operations in Kashmir, all Indian Army soldiers, officers, they have multiple postings in Kashmir. And most of these postings are along the line of control. So line of control, because Pakistanis are trying to infiltrate terrorists all the time, so line of control has to be watched 24/7 physically. So there are pickets almost every 300 yards. So you are sitting right along the line of control because you are watching against this infiltration, and also it's a live border, and because you're on the line of control, this bat action stuff goes on. You go in, kill a couple of theirs, they come in, try and kill a couple of yours. So this is a very live borderline. He says that when the same officers go to, say, the border with China, which is called LAC, line of actual control, they carry the same mindset. Because they've spent so much time on LOC, they take the LOC mindset to LAC. So idea again is to protect or to watch every square inch of the line of actual control. So again, divide yourself in penny pockets and spread out. And he says no such activity is going on along the line of actual control. So time has now come to doctrinally break this barrier in our minds. We should not take, the army should not take the LOC mindset to LAC. So equipment, planning, etc. has to be done in such a way that the army keeps reserves in depth. It should not be reactive. He said now the Chinese build a road someplace and we think, oh, they'll come from here, and we go then pile up in front of them. That is not needed. Today you have helicopters, and he talked about the Chinooks, which have made movement in the mountains much easier, movement of large forces. Also the arrival of the M777 howitzer, which can be easily lifted by the Chinook from one place to the other. So he said, given that, and lots of new advanced landing grounds have been constructed, given that the psychology of taking care of chappa zameen, we have to now grow out of it. So once again, keep your reserves in depth, have the ability and mobility to move up quickly to a place where the need may arise. So that's the big change. Third, reform on size, again very significant. He said that at this point, that two more divisions have been raised for the line of actual control, that is against China. These are 56 and 71 division, and two more divisions are under raising. These are under the corps at Panagarh, what was meant to be a mountain strike corps, 17, if I remember correctly. It was supposed to be a mountain strike corps. Now he said these two divisions will be raised. One has been raised, one is under raising, but the third one will not be raised. This is it. And he says this army is already 13 lakhs. How can we go on increasing the size? So this is it, full stop. Very important statement. He said this is it, full stop. So what will he do? He thinks that through this integrated battle groups, he'll be able to cut down on a lot of his logistics expenses and logistics manpower. He says in this time and age, when there are petrol pumps everywhere, must the army stock its own fuel everywhere and have an entire logistics chain and system replicating everything. So once you do this formation level reorganization and change your doctrinal mindset, you will also get economies, and then you can manage within the manpower that you've got. He's ruled out any further increase in manpower. And he said Chinese have a vision and a plan. Chinese will not come and just deliver print pricks to you. They have a vision and a plan. They come to attack you. Maybe they'll come, they will plan to use their missiles and pulverize your command and control systems. They will not come and fight you post against post or tiny formation against tiny formation. So horses for courses and different ideas for different battlefields. So that is the size reform. Number 4, reform in higher defense organization. I told you it is the most extensive and open interview I have seen a serving army chief give to a journalist in a very long time, and I am very happy that it is our defense editor who's been chosen to be given such an access and such a lot of wisdom. So higher defense organization, he talked about the Chief of Defense Staff. The Prime Minister announced on Independence Day that there will be a Chief of Defense Staff now. He obviously ducked our suggestions or questions that he could be the next CDS. He said it doesn't matter who's the next CDS. He also said it doesn't matter whether the next CDS is a 4-star general or a 5-star officer. It can be general, air marshal, admiral, anything. So he said it doesn't matter. Don't focus on stars and stripes, his words. Focus on the role. And what will the CDS do? He said the first thing the new CDS will need to do is to give up the shyness of his own service or the attachment to his own service and convince the other two that he speaks for all of them. And then over time build jointmanship. Jointmanship is sort of the soldier speak for different kinds of different units or different forces working together and thinking as one, not Air Force fighting its own battle, Navy fighting its own battle, Army fighting its own battle, all fighting in all 3 dimensions together as one and jointly. So he said once you shed the inhibitions of your service, then you can create jointmanship, and then there are some ideas. He said training, for example. Everything can't be done jointly, but National Defence College officers from all 3 services go. Defence Services Staff College, officers from all 3 services go and train together. So he said, what about the higher command course? Maybe we can integrate that as well. That's one of the ideas that is floating. And he says, once this happens, this will have other consequences. Because if integrated battle groups work out and the Chief of Defence Staff works out and this jointmanship builds up, then India can move towards creating theatre commands, as the Chinese have, as all modern armies have. So create a theatre where you might have operations, maybe in 1 dimension, 2 dimensions. Nothing is 1 dimension now, at least it's air and ground. 2 dimensions or 3 dimensions and cyber, etc. So each theatre will have a commander who will then command elements of all 3 forces under him. For that to happen, before that, all this other change has to come in. First of all, armies units have to learn to work together in IBGs, and second, the new CDS has to bring in that jointmanship at the top levels. Number 5, firepower reform. So the chief talked at great length about reform or improvement in artillery. We know that in modern warfare, it's something that most of us don't realize because we watch movies and we think rifles and bullets kill a lot of your enemy. No. In modern warfare, bulk of the casualties are caused by artillery. And increasingly, as the artillery is becoming more deadly, more accurate, it's also acquiring longer range. So your artillery actually becomes like maybe tactical air power used to be in the past in close air support role. You can have your gun sitting 35, 40 kilometers back and firing from there. So he says the army India did not buy an artillery gun after Bofors, which was, as we know, was ordered in 86, 87. Bofors is a great gun, he said, but it's now getting outdated. So the Army and Ordnance Factory Board have worked together on it. There were drawings and technology transfer stuff available from Bofors. So a new gun has been created, which is stronger, has longer range, is more powerful than Bofors, and has several other superior features. 400 copies of this have been ordered. It's called Dhanush, and early next year, Ordnance Factory Board will start delivering this gun. So that will increase the range, firepower, accuracy, everything. He talked about 2 more systems, the Vajra K9 system, which is kind of tracked, self-propelled artillery. These are guns that travel on their own tracks, so they can move with advancing formations. This is Vajra K9. That is now being manufactured by Larsen and Toubro, which has got orders of 4,500 crores from the Indian Army in collaboration with a company called Hanwha Corporation of South Korea. So that is the other one. Plus, he said negotiations are now going on for advanced towed artillery gun system. As you can see, this is towed artillery. advanced towed artillery gun system of 152 mm, ATAGS it is called. So once that happens, India will have an artillery revolution. So in fact, he indicated that an artillery revolution is on. He also said that he is quite happy with the health of his tank forces. And wherever there were ammunition shortages, particularly of armor-piercing ammunition, that has now been addressed, and he feels quite adequately stocked, so nothing to worry about there. Sixth, a very key reform and a very brave reform, that is the physical health of the army. He's been laying a lot of emphasis. His predecessors have also tried it. I think 3 or 4 of his predecessors were very fit personally and fitness maniacs in their own ways. But he has now made it more formal. So he said that anybody seen to be obese will be denied a promotion even if they are cleared by the board. And he gave us the example of a brigadier who was cleared by his board to be Major General, but that promotion has been denied to him. Promotions are being denied. He said foreign postings are being denied, and a lot of other rewards are being denied if you are overweight. So that will force or inspire people to be fitter and to control their weight. He also said that now at the academy where officers go to train in Mao, junior leaders course, at the beginning of the course, they will be made to take a tough physical test. If they pass it, it's fine. If they don't pass it, they will again be allowed to take that test when they finish their course. If they pass it, well and good. If they don't pass it, then they will be denied their instructor grading. What does that mean? If you are denied your instructor grading, it affects your future promotion prospects, foreign postings, etc. So it's a bit like, if I may put it very simply in a decluttered way, it is the army's equivalent of the Ravi Shastri, Virat Kohli yo-yo test for the Indian cricket team. That no matter how good a cricketer you are, if you can't pass my yo-yo test, see you later. And people have been dropped from the team like that. So this is the army's yo-yo test for young officers. And finally, and this is something that I would say is really something I'm so touched by. And it's a big human resources reform. The social and intellectual gap between the officer and the other rank, as they are called, the Jawans, people who join as recruits, as Jawans, is now not what it used to be 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago. So the gap between the officer and the soldier and the Jawan or the other rank is not that much. And many of these Jawans might then think that, look, I didn't get an opportunity, otherwise I could be an officer as well. I'm as able as my officer. So to address that, Officers Training Academy at Madras will now conduct 2 courses in a year, each one with 100 of these men handpicked and selected by various formations, where formation leaders or officers see officer-like qualities in these men. These 100 will come, batch of 100 every 6 months. They will be trained at the Officers Training Academy, then to pass their Services Selection Board exam, SSB for IMA. If they pass that exam, they will go to IMA and they will train like any other recruits, IMA cadets, and they will become officers. This will serve 2 purposes. One, this will open one more avenue for other ranks to become officers. So they can't say, because I did not take my chance earlier, I did not get my chance earlier, I've lost it forever. And second, this will also help in terms of avoiding some of the promotion bottlenecks, because these men, these other ranks to officers will come into service at a later age, not at 18, 19, 20, 21, but maybe 27, 28, like that. So that is the dual purpose. And he said that these people suddenly, it's a question from another rank, can you suddenly become an officer? And he said no, the training at OTA Madras, I'm saying Madras because that's the name of OTA, it's like Madras High Court. They'll be given soft skill training in soft skills, leadership traits, communication skills, decision-making ability, etc., etc., and other officer-like qualities. So for me, this is a very major change. I think this is the most extensive reform statement I have heard from a chief as yet, and just listening to him, I get the sense that this has wide acceptance and support in the government system. So once again, you want to read it in full, go to our website, read Snehesh Alex Phillips' full interview. I just handpicked a few points which I thought are the most important and which also I thought should not get lost in military jargon. So thank you very much for watching, and once again, subscribe to our YouTube channel and get your friends and family to do so.